Welcome to It's a Serenus Life podcast. This episode is a recap of my life from the last 6 years. To start, did you know that according to astrology, 2025 was known as the year of completion, and 2026 was the start of new beginnings? I realized that I had climbed many mountains and accomplishments, but also had fallen down many valleys that I would be learning from. If I'm focusing on 2019 to 2025, I would say the years go like this. The first year was my best friend dying, and I honestly haven't been the same since. The plexiglass I had around me since childhood had shattered into a million pieces after her passing. After that was the year of COVID, the massive blow to our human race, shoving people into tight spaces, locking up the world, making every single person question everything in their life and every decision that they would make, most while being alone. Did you know that more elderly died from loneliness and sadness during this time? I still can't figure out if COVID was done on purpose, but either way, COVID sucked. The next year after that was just coming to terms with everything that had changed since COVID. The rules that had changed, the expectations that were needed to be enforced. It was a lot. The fourth year was my car accident, March of 2023. And that, my friends, on top of when the plexiglass had shattered with my best friend dying, the car accident was going to change the course of my life forever. That car accident gave me one heck of a head concussion that shook me to my core. I had pounding headaches, blurred vision, blurred speech. I couldn't understand simple things that were easier to deal with before the car accident. It really was scary and extremely unsettling. But at the same aspect, I would say that this was also divine intervention, because this would move my brain waves, everything that was in my brain head, it would move it all around. But then it allowed me to develop a new frequency that would allow me to connect to a world I always knew existed, but didn't know enough about. I just know that I was seeing and hearing things differently after my accident. Now I'm a unique individual. I always vibrated to my own vibration. I never stopped moving. And I will be honest, I'm pretty sure I stayed in a valley a tad longer than I should have. But during this time, I was also a wife, a mom, a classroom mom, an assistant group leader. I own my own salon space, which allows me to connect and make my 75 and more beautiful clients feel beautiful. They fill my days. They're wonderful. But after that accident, I will say, I kind of almost felt like I was superhuman in a way. I could clock people's BS or even be able to tell you if that was true or not true, or if you were lying or not lying. And even though I got sad during this time, it was noticeable that the car accident and maybe the way that I was living had affected my social interactions, and it was hard for me to feel like myself again, or the self that I had before the accident. My anxiety had immensely increased along with stress. But how are you supposed to feel after all that stuff happens to you? I mean, after the accident and everything with my brain, I noticed that my therapy that I had started was coming closer to a breakthrough. I was able to see patterns more in who I dated and why, patterns in my family, patterns with my friends, even patterns that I was doing myself. Negative patterns that would affect the way I communicated and connected to anyone. But if you know me, I don't stay seated for that long. I was going to dive head first, tackling all of the childhood trauma, anything that came to me from that point all the way since the day I was born. And nothing was easy, but I do have a way of looking at things from different perspectives. And I did feel like I was being prepared for something much bigger than even I could comprehend. The trauma that was coming through had been weighing me down for decades. I realized that I had a massive backpack filled with trauma, emotional, mental, sexual, verbal abuse. I also had mother and father wounds. I could not believe that I did not know that this was going on. I felt my body and mind constantly fighting battles for me while I continued to wake up every day with debilitating anxiety. And just to let you know, the world does not stop for anything. It doesn't stop for you to work through a lot of things or start new habits sometimes. It takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication to wake up every single morning. Some of those days you didn't even want to get out of bed. And I'll be honest, I love staying in a warm bed, especially when it's cold out. So when my life was throwing me a ton of curveballs, I needed help to work through them. And so that's why in 2020, I started weekly counseling shortly after my friend had died. I knew about the 5 stages of grief, and I knew that the 5 stages of grief kind of show up in everything that you do. At least it showed up in everything I was going through. If I didn't do the work and learn what was in my toolbox of knowledge, I'll be honest, I feel these last couple of years would have really taken me. But like I said before, it was important for me to learn about myself in all of my ways. I knew I was a unique and kind person with a little bit of a temper. But I had my past constantly ruminate in my mind, reminding me of all my insecurities and mistakes that I made with myself and others. The insecurities and guilt played major roles in all of my relationships with friends, family, boyfriends, my spouse, you name it. But I was determined to find out about myself and excel in any healing and anything that my counselor had requested, anything that I had read that might help. I was just determined to use everything, put it in my toolbox, so if it ever happened later in my life, I would have a toolbox ready for myself or maybe to be able to help others. Now, a few years into my counseling, my counselor had asked me, "Sarah, are you sure that you don't have any childhood trauma?" Well, that question was asked because being raised where you didn't talk things through, or if you did bring things up to an adult, it was kind of thrown to the side, which really did affect me. If our parents dismissed our needs, then that meant that their parents dismissed their needs. These are the things we don't think about. We don't think that maybe the way our parents were raised or our friends were raised or anyone that we come in contact that were raised, that it can cause generational trauma. And guess what? Someone needs to be the fixer of that. And well, if you know me, that's what I did. I became the fixer of my family. And it wasn't easy. After 2.5 years of counseling, traumas started to resurface. And just recently, in the early 2025, a memory that I had stuffed into the bottom of my toes came to the surface. My counselor told me that most times if trauma is stored in the body, now mind you, I said that I had a ton of anxiety, a ton of stress, and can you believe that a lot of that was just my trauma that was in my body? It gave me digestive issues. It caused the anxiety, the stress. It was crazy. But once you start breaking the ice, well, the bad stuff can come to the surface. And that it did. It came up at night as a nightmare. And I was told that when stuff like that happens, if you had any very intense trauma happen to you and you block it out for maybe safety reasons, once you start doing the counseling, it's a good chance that it's going to come up, and it could come up with a nightmare. And it did. I remember being in a white-walled room. It was small. I was laying down while there was another young boy that was laying beside me. Now, in this nightmare, I could feel God protecting my vision, only giving me enough information that I would soon learn was the piece of the puzzle that I needed to put things together in why I reacted the way that I did, why I felt the way that I did. But unfortunately, that small white-walled room was the exact space where that boy made me do things to him. I remember feeling very uncomfortable. And that experience only allowed me to really feel comfortable with two people in my life sexually. I had cried a lot during intimacy, especially with my spouse, because it was so overwhelming to remember this just recently. Especially when people have the same name as the abuser. It's a giant mind mess, and it affects my internal processing. I never knew why my emotions would react the way that I did, but it gave me a lot of information too. I realized I was an anxious avoidant, raised by other avoidances, which also allowed me to date other avoidant people. And I know that I'm not the only one to experience something like this, and it's why I'm able to talk about it. All my relationships were with avoiders, and if I'm the only one that really wants to fix situations, then it's on me, and only I can do it. And that I did. I thank God every day that I have compassion. I know that for that boy to have done the stuff that he did to me or asked me to do meant someone had to be doing that to him. So it was definitely, obviously, a giant mind mess to go through, processing my truth, my reality, while also feeling compassion for the child who did it. And I'm sure you are wondering, why didn't I tell an adult? Well, I did tell an adult. I, at a very young age, was listening to my body, and it was definitely uncomfortable. And I did tell that adult about the discomfort, but unfortunately, I feel that that adult may have gone through something similar in their early years. So telling me it's just what boys do, that was probably the words that were told to them. Therefore, that traumatic event was dismissed. But that one dismissal followed me through every single relationship I was going to experience and go through in my life. I had become a people pleaser. I also became a performer, thinking if I performed well enough, I'd be heard. I became louder than normal. ADHD heightened as a child. I became fearful of swimming. Why? Because I would have to wear less clothes around that boy. My body was developing, and my fear for that boy to see me change and look different, almost like he was looking at me like I was an object, and it really affected me. And to know that by dismissing this as a child, my emotional and physical regulations were totally misfiring, and they were eventually going to come to the surface in my 40s. Nuts, right? Here's when I started to know things were changing in my heart and mind. When my friend passed, I realized that I was living with that plexiglass around it. And I hadn't really lost anyone that was close to me before. I had lost my grandparents in my younger years, but I always had a disconnection with that because I understood the circle of life. The same world that we are born into is the same world that we would depart from. But the one thing I hadn't experienced yet was when anyone that is taken too soon, no parent should bury a child. And honestly, from my thought, no child should die in general because their lives are just starting. And that's the really sucky part to understand. I assumed my friend would be in my life until my last breath. But that wasn't true, was it? Once what I thought was unshatterable plexiglass shattered, and my whole world was flipped upside down. I started grieving her passing about 4 months after she had passed. After she passed, then passed my brother-in-law. And after he passed, then COVID happened. And it's like we all had to hold our breaths for about a year. My job had stopped. Kids stopped going to school. The world started shutting down. I was not the only one struggling with their own internal battles. I was a wife, a mother, a teacher, a grieving person who lost her best friend, and I was expected to know things and teach things to my children that I knew nothing about. We were all scared of COVID and what it was doing to our world. This is not exactly what I thought my 40s would look like. I knew life wasn't easy, but seriously, I think having midlife crises totally makes sense now, especially when they're midway through your life. I'd like to know how I was going to unpack this very full backpack of my whole life before 2025 was over, since it was the year of completion. But I do have a lot of goals, and maybe this was a semi-unreachable one with everything that I was finding out. But I have a drive. By this time, I felt I was going through some sort of initiation. Nothing I did killed me, but it sure felt close with my sanity, pushing me to go through extremes so I would remember exactly who I was, which is a very strong woman. And all this stuff within this 6-year span was a lot. Now, I gave you a fairly good description of the first couple of years, the rundown with my friend, COVID, car accident, but I didn't go into the deep detail of what was added into the mix during these 6 years. I was bullied by an adult woman group online while I was going through the concussion. Okay, so that was a lot. That was too much mind stuff at one time. I also had wasp and honeybee stings because the stings were happening in such a short period of time. I remember my hands swelled. I also had 3 cases of strep throat during this time, and the second one almost closed my throat. I had 2 more relatives passing, one being my nephew, and that was very traumatic. It felt like there was no land in sight. Remember, it's what I felt like. Like, how much more will I have to go through? How much more does anyone have to go through? Everyone looks at me like I'm a positive Patty, but I learned to handle things with a smile or gritting my teeth while I was being kind. Honestly, though, I kind of felt depressed, just really sad during this time. My concussion made it so hard for me to work through things like I used to. I seriously got to the point where I couldn't give two craps about anyone else's drama. I had more than enough to work through on my own. I had to put up boundaries to my family, to my friends. I didn't call people. I didn't ask for help. I didn't know how to let anyone in when my life was totally flipped upside down. But the one person that had never left my side from day one was God, and I knew that He knew exactly what to do. The next episode will be how I let God in, how I gave up total control to Him, and how He guided me to spirituality. And then along with my religious beliefs, it helped me through all of it. Thank you for listening to It's a Serenist Life podcast. Signing off until next time.